Greetings, folks. This is just another Stupid Tumor update. Some of you subscribers may remember back in May, I made a video stating that I'd been approved for some rehabilitation in regards to the issues I'm having since having this stupid tumor removed from my head. For those of you that are new here, I had an acoustic neuroma. It's a tumor that grows on the nerve that transfers the data you hear to your brain back here. Mine was really big, starting to press on my cerebellum, or as the Germans say, Kleinhirn, and I had it removed about 3 years ago. Since then, my issues include, but are not limited to, vertigo. That is, I'm dizzy or feel like I'm on a boat almost constantly. That results in me having like headaches behind my eyes and feeling nauseous. I also have a constant ringing in my left ear, which is strange because I'm also completely deaf in my left ear. You see, my balance organ and everything involved with hearing was just crushed by this tumor or operation. Not sure which one. So I got an update, in a way, of a date. I will be going to this rehabilitation in August. I should be going for 3 weeks. Everybody has warned me, and I've heard you all in the comments, not just about the cure shotting, but I've been warned that they may ask me to stay longer. I'm along for the ride and open for whatever they think is necessary. The clinic that they are sending me to for this rehabilitation sent me a lot of details, and I was also able to look at pictures and information online. I get a single room, and I even get a balcony. But the best thing about this clinic that they're sending me to, from what I could see, is that they specialize in neurological issues. And this is really good, because up until this point, I have yet to meet a neurologist that showed any interest in doing his job or even looking at me or my issues seriously. Oh, don't get me wrong, I've had appointments at neurologists here. But unfortunately, I'd have to say that all of those appointments I've had by neurologists brought me nothing. You see, the tumor I had, when they did the first MRI where they discovered it, they informed me that it was already touching on my cerebellum, and therefore it had to get out of there. But I have to tell you, since the surgery, I felt a lot worse than I did before the surgery. What's scary for me is it's not just this constant battle with balance and everything tied to that. I also seriously have a lot of moments of forgetfulness, and am realizing I'm having a hard time concentrating, more so than normal for me. You know that thing where you go into a room and then you stop yourself and ask, why did I just come in here? Everybody has that, but I'm having it every day. That concerns me. And it concerned my other doctors enough that they encouraged me to make an appointment at a neurologist, which I did, like 3 times now. In regards to my balance issues, that was something I was warned about before my operation, and I was having issues with balance before my operation. That's what led me to go to the doctor and make them find the tumor. But they're worse now. They're worse than they were before. And what I know about that is I was told that my balance organ in my left ear is destroyed. But what every doctor says right after that is your balance organ in my right ear is fine, and so eventually my brain should retrain itself. And so here we are, folks, 3 years later, and I'm still having all these issues, and I want help, and I'm reaching out to clinics and neurologists, and if I'm honest with you guys, I'm having a lot of bad luck. And while I'm being honest, I need to tell you all, I haven't been completely honest with you so far. But that changes today. Now, when I say I wasn't completely honest with you all, the thing is, I try to stay positive. I try to stay hopeful. And when I started doing the videos about having this specific tumor, I was hoping to reach others that had this rare tumor. And the last thing I want to do is scare them. I don't want to scare anybody. It's scary enough having a freaking brain tumor. And if I'm honest, I also, as a human, have a tendency to keep the bad stuff inside, shove it down real deep, keep it to myself, and always put up a front of, I got this, everything's gonna be okay, I'm a fighter. What I'm saying is it's also always been hard for me to show weakness. But I learned in therapy that this is all not healthy and I am working on it. Consider this video first steps at me sharing problems and issues and trying not to cover them up with a happy face. Crooked, but happy. As far as my facial paralysis goes, I do have to say on a positive note, within the last few weeks, I felt more movement in my upper lip. The bottom lip is still not really doing what I want it to do, but has improved since the operation, and the eyebrow's still being a jerk, but in the form of wrinkles and stuff, it's showing some signs of possible improvement in the near future, so that's good. Back to what we were talking about. Where were we? Neurologist, right. So I had some nightmare experiences. When I had to make an appointment, I looked on Google Maps. I use Google Maps often, not just to find out where it is, but often to read reviews from other people. They can be very, very helpful. I found 2 neurologists on the same road, and my thinking was if one couldn't take me, then I can just walk down the road to the other one. After living so many years here in Germany, I knew I was going to have to wait a period of time for that appointment. I assumed a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, and I was fine with that. So I headed to the first place. I turned around and walked right out of that place within the first 2 minutes of being in there because the secretaries were annoyed that I had come in to ask about an appointment. I was dizzy, I was leaning on their desk to hold myself up, half of my face was hanging worse than this, and I felt nauseous, if anybody cares, but these 2 secretaries were in the middle of a conversation that I clearly interrupted when I came in. It was about something private, it was not work. I stepped back and waited till they were done, but her response when I finally was allowed to speak and informed I needed an appointment with a neurologist because I had a tumor in my head and I'm still having problems, her response was, it went something like this. Well, you're not going to get an appointment here before like the next 9 months. And I looked at her and I said, well, you know what? I don't think I want an appointment here if this is how you talk to people and treat your patients. And I turned around and let the door slam behind me. Head down the road to the next neurologist place. So the next place was just effing creepy. There's no other way to describe it. I witnessed things that I'm pretty sure are illegal in this country. First off, it was the first doctor's office I've ever been to, and yes, still to this point, the only doctor's office I've ever been to, where when you enter it, you enter into a waiting room, not reception. And to get to reception, there's a big closed wooden door. And so I walked in and I thought, this is weird, where's reception? And I asked somebody sitting in the quiet waiting room, and they directed me through that door. I did an awkward knock and heard nothing, but I'm also deaf in one ear, opened it a crack to look in, and I did in fact see a receptionist desk, but what I noticed immediately were some waiting chairs with a lady sitting at it, a guy at the counter talking to the receptions, and over here, like 2 medical bed chairs separated by curtains. I thought, this is just different than anything I've seen, and I backed out, waited till the guy was done, and then I went in. Woman was on the phone at this point, didn't make eye contact with me, but I very cautiously approached and kept my quiet until she made eye contact with me and asked how she could help me. I informed her I need an appointment with a neurologist due to problems I'm having after having a tumor in my head. And she said she could offer me an appointment within the next, I think it was 4 or 5 months. And I looked at her and said, absolutely no problem. That is wonderful. Thank you very much. And I was on my way. I'm going to try to keep this short because it really is a long story that involved a couple appointments. He saw me, and when I say saw me, he barely looked at me, barely touched me, and when I spoke even once, he told me to shh, he was busy reading my paperwork. That doctor had zero interest, pushed all of his responsibilities onto his secretaries. That's why there were medical beds in that room. When I had to come back and get an EKG on my head, the doctor wasn't going to talk to me, wasn't going to see me, and the entire time I laid there, I listened to these two really horrible humans of his secretaries sit there and do everything from talk shit on people that owed debt to this place. I heard names. I listened to them make phone calls. I heard them talk about how much money these people owed them. I heard them talking about how the doctor in fact sent them a memo saying he doesn't want to see patients, that he will pass all testing to their secretaries. I'm laying there wondering, what kind of a secretary also gets trained to put electrodes on and do EKGs? Is this... Like, it got horrific, and at the point where the doctor came out and the curtain next to me, he's sitting literally only a curtain between us with an older gentleman patient, and I laid there and listened as he informed this older gentleman patient that he had depression, and I heard things I shouldn't have heard. That conversation should not be happening. Why didn't he take him into his fancy pants office where he looked at me for 2 seconds and did like a 1950s style test to see if my nerves react, even though I had already had modern tests in regards to that? Seriously, I cannot say clear enough how horrible that experience was at that place. When I was laying in that stool, feeling like I was going to have an anxiety attack, and the things were starting to dig into my back of my head as I'm on this uncomfortable chair for like, I'm supposed to sit there for like an hour or something, and at this point it was about half an hour, and I was feeling nauseous and dizzy again, and I kind of like yelled at just to the curtain, because you know that's where reception is, where I'm getting my EKG and where other patients are coming through and can stare at me. And I said, I don't know how much longer I can do this, because I wasn't feeling good, but I was only able to get those words out when the ever so pleasant trash lady behind the counter responded to me by yelling across her reception to my area something like, well, you better sit there and finish it, because if you don't, you're gonna have to pay the doctor for this test. I'm laying there and I'm thinking, well, ain't that some American stuff right there? Where am I right now? That is not how it works here. I was horrified. I heard so much private patient information there. I was embarrassed for those patients. So I stuck in there till the end, and at the end, I walked up to the counter, and I looked at the lady behind the counter, and I said, I have an appointment with you for 2 weeks from now. And she looked in her book, and she nodded her head, and I said, please delete that, and delete everything else out of your system that you have in regards to me, because I will never be back here again. This was a nightmare. And I turned around, and I let the door slam. Side note, I have a fantastic therapist that I am really thankful through all of this has been there for me. So of course I shared with this professional how frustrated I was and feeling broken and like nobody cared and I'm never going to get fixed. And my therapist is not just professional, but the guy has a heart, and he really wanted to help me. And so what he did is he said he knew somebody about 20 minutes away from me. If I could get there, maybe he could get me an appointment. It's a newer, more modern clinic. The doctor's younger. He hasn't heard any bad things about this neurologist. And so I let him set up an appointment for me. I waited about 3 weeks. You know, I waited about average. It wasn't like I got any kind of special treatment, but my therapist felt it necessary because he didn't personally know this neurologist. He just happened to have a friend or a colleague that worked in that clinic that was able to just make my appointment for me. My therapist felt it was polite to send a letter explaining himself, and his letter just read something like explaining who he was first. He was my therapist, and that I'd been in treatment with him for years, working on issues like depression and anxiety, and that I was making great progress in past years. However, the health issues I'm having now are definitely having an effect on it. And so therefore, he reached out to this clinic to try to help me to get this much needed neurologist appointment. Really, that's pretty much the sum of the letter that my therapist sent me there with. Just, thanks for helping my patient out. I walked in there, with about 4 or 5 CDs of different CTs and MRIs I've had. I walked in there with several different doctors' reports, and I even had an MRI, I think about within 1 month before this appointment, and I laid it down there. This guy did not look any further than my therapist's note. I shit you not. This guy came at me with the pains in my head were from depression. So we're all gonna now forget that I had a tumor in the back of my head about this big that destroyed a lot of things here, as well as was pushing on my brain, and to the point that they had to drill a hole and open up my head. None of that is causing anything I have right now. None of that. Like, I felt like basically this guy's saying I'm imagining this stuff. And I mean, I do know that generally that can happen. However, it is not my depression that is causing me migraines. Thankfully, I don't have migraines daily, but I will have them at least every month, sometimes twice a month, migraines. And the headaches and head pains I wanted to speak with him about vary in anything from just behind my eyes because of the whole dizzy thing, but also very weird feelings all around the wound site that still to this day no doctor wants to talk about or can explain to me. I just keep going on guessing it's nerves reconnecting and stuff healing. Fingers crossed, because no doctor wants to talk about it. Yes, a tumor in my head, the fact that they opened it up, the fact that they took a big thing out that left a little bit of a hole, the fact that organs were crushed and destroyed, none of those things caused my head pains, and the conversation was over. My issues were caused by my depression. To say I was angry is an understatement. Really? I mean, I feel like just being really crude and saying F that guy and F every single neurologist in this city at this point. Which brings us to me seeking help at a university hospital here in Germany. You may recall I posted a video back in February about that. Here's where once again I admit to you I wasn't completely honest with you all about that. But I'm gonna be now. I was at that place in September 2019 for 3 days, had a lot of tests done on me. At the end, was left with the CT was not ready that they did on this area, and they wanted to do tests on me in a spinning stool. So I was to go home, get a full eye exam, and then call, and once the spinning stool was repaired, come back with that eye exam. And then this doctor, his words to me was he was really interested in finding out why I am still dizzy after all these years. But that's not what happened, and I should have realized it. I should have realized it from the moment that I stood up there, having that appointment set for weeks, if not months. I showed up, the first day that I showed up there, they didn't know what to do with me, and with my nausea, dizziness, and balance issues, had me running up and down floors because they couldn't figure out where to put me, ultimately putting me into the gynecology section, and my bathroom had mold on the ceiling for whatever that's worth, kind of weird. Something was wrong there with their ear, nose, and throat department, but I felt like nobody wanted to admit it. It was like an elephant in the room. At one point, I was actually sent to that department of this clinic and was a little shocked but extremely curious about how the doors that went into the clearly marked ear, nose, and throat part of this hospital were not just locked and closed, but actually had metal chains wrapped around it. I'm telling you, I had visions of zombie movies at this point. There were a lot of signs from the moment I got there that this was not a place that was going to be able to help me. There's just a lot of ridiculous things going on and a lot of unorganization, and that continued when I came back in February when the spinny stool was finally fixed, and I brought them my eye exam that I had, and the lady at the front desk looked really annoyed that I wanted to hand her this eye exam and was like, I'll put it in your paperwork. I was like, the doctor asked me to get it. But by the end of that day and after the spinny stool test, nobody was interested in that eye exam, and I have no idea who the last lady was who talked to me. She didn't seem to communicate with the doctors I had seen during those 3 days in September, because she came at me with what I already knew. This lady came in and said to me, good news, your right balance organ is fine, so eventually your brain should retrain itself. I honestly could not believe what I was listening to. I had been doing every every exercise you can imagine in regards to retraining my balance. I try to be so active even though I feel like shit. And after all of these tests they did on me using high-tech equipment and computers and technology, nothing. I came out of there with nothing. I came out of there with no information. And after many, many months of sending emails, and I tried to make a call, but calling's no fun with one ear and losing your balance. Asking where's the doctor's report, the results of everything, a copy of the CT you made on that area. I would like to know what damage was done and how it's affecting me. I demanded, I've written emails. Finally, like about a week ago, after all of my demands, I got an envelope from this clinic. I really, honestly, I only opened it up, saw, okay, this looks like doctor paperwork, and I ran it down to my ear, nose, and throat doctor, made an appointment for the following week, and that appointment was this week. And I went into this appointment this week, only to find out that what the clinic had sent me was not, in fact, the results of all of the tests they did on me for more than 4 days. It was not any copy or information on the CT and what is going on in this area where things are damaged and broken. There was not an official doctor's report. In my opinion, they mailed me garbage. They mailed me copies of things I had given them, like previous MRI results and previous doctor's reports, things I supplied them with at the beginning. And they slipped in a few papers from some of the tests they performed on me, but no explanation, no doctor's report. Absolutely ridiculous and insulting. There's no way around it. My experience at that university hospital makes me sick. It makes me sick how I can clearly state how bad I feel and how much I'm desperate to get help, and you just get tossed around like a rag doll. And I hung in there for all that tossing around because I wanted my answers, and now I don't even have my answers. And quite honestly, I just don't understand how it's even legal that they can withhold from me at this point. I made several demands, several clear demands that I want this information. And as far as I'm concerned, at this point, they are withholding from me my personal information over my body. I'm literally 3 years since they took this tumor out, and I've only had little teasers given to me as to what exactly was damaged in here and how it affects me. On a daily basis, I'm literally just trying to figure it out myself. Is it my diet? Is it my sleep? And it doesn't, I'm lost. After coming back from my ear, nose, and throat doctor, I sent an email. I went onto the website of this university hospital, and I tried to find the email address of whoever I could at higher levels in this hospital. And number one, I informed them that I'm going to be open with the public with my nightmare experience at their clinic. And I once again demanded my personal information, my CDs, the doctor's report. I once again informed them of my issues and that my doctor had sent me there for all of this. I still have heard nothing back. So as you can imagine, I'm a little hesitant to be hopeful about this rehabilitation trip. But I am going to give you all updates from there. I still haven't figured out how that will look. Maybe I just do a little vlog each night in my room. Maybe I post that all as one giant thing at the end. Maybe I update you every week. I don't know. I'll let you know as it gets closer, or maybe when I'm there. But I'm going to be honest from now on. Which is why it's a very good idea that I don't tell you the name of this clinic I'm going to go to. Number one, because I don't want any stalkers that I may feel the need to hurt for stalking. But also because after all I've been through, my temper, my tolerance, it's like at a 0. So it might be better for me to go there, try to stay positive, and try to get through it all, and hope that I get these answers I've been trying to get for 3 years now out of this rehabilitation clinic. So yeah, that'll be in August. If you want to make sure that you can follow along with all my rehabilitation updates or with my tumor stories, make sure you subscribe and click the bell so that you get a notification when I do that. do. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until we talk again, take care of yourself.